Welcome everybody. Today we will zoom into the internal organization of the European Parliament. In many ways, the European Parliament is similar to national parliaments. It has committees that focus on certain policy areas and plenary sessions. In other regards, it is quite unique. For example, in terms of its 3 locations and the many languages that are spoken. But let's have a look at some of those features. The European Parliament is based not in 1, but in 3 cities. Members of European Parliament, so-called MEPs, spend most of their time in Brussels, where the committee and political group meetings and also a few so-called mini plenary sessions take place. The regular plenary sessions are held in Strasbourg, France. Roughly once a month, a massive traveling circus takes place, with all MEPs, their assistants, and European Parliament staff packing their documents in Brussels and migrating to Strasbourg for about 3.5 days of plenary discussions. In addition, a part of the European Parliament's administration is based in Luxembourg. The European Parliament is relatively large in terms of parliamentarians. Since February 2020, when the UK left the European Union, the European Parliament has been composed of 704 members, plus 1 president, so in total 705. These 705 seats are divided between member states based on the principle of digressive proportionality. This means that the number of MEPs is divided over the member states in proportion to their population, but not in a linear way. Smaller member states are allocated more seats than would be strictly proportional. For example, member states with the smallest populations, like Malta, Cyprus, and Luxembourg, get a minimum of 6 elected representatives, while member states with a larger population, like Germany, are entitled to a higher number of MEPs. In the case of Germany, 96. If you are an EU national, have a look at how many of your compatriots are represented by 1 MEP. If you come from a non-EU country, just choose an EU member state and do the same. Do you think that this is a good representation? Most MEPs are members of a political group. Already in the very first meeting of the Common Assembly in 1952, did the delegates sit in political group formations rather than according to their nationalities. This has remained the custom ever since. The number, names, and members of the political groups change sometimes. But for example, the European People's Party, the Socialists and Democrats, and the Greens have existed for a long time. To form a political group, it takes at least 25 MEPs from at least 1/4 of the member states. A few MEPs are not attached to a political group. They miss out on the advantages that are associated with membership of a political group. The political groups discuss reports that are being negotiated in the different committees and the tabling of amendments in committees and plenary sessions. During votes, there is, however, no formal pressure on MEPs to vote along political group lines. The advantage of forming a political group includes financial support, speaking time in plenary, nominations for chairmanships of committees, and representation in the Conference of Presidents. About 20 parliamentary committees specialize in different policy areas, such as the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs, the Committee on Foreign Affairs, and the Committee on Fisheries. In these committees, the different legislative proposals and other initiatives are discussed before they are moved to plenary. The committees vary in size between about 25 to 75 MEPs. Their composition in terms of political groups reflect the general composition of the European Parliament. Each committee has one chair, 4 vice chair, a bureau, and a secretariat. The membership of a committee is determined on the basis of a proposal by the political groups and the conference of the President's proposal to plenary. The main tasks of the committees is the drafting of reports on legislative proposals and on other initiatives, and then to present them to plenary. So-called rapporteurs, who are individual MEPs, are assigned the responsibility to shepherd a legislative proposal through the negotiations within the committee. Each political party that does not have one of the rapporteurs assigns the role of a so-called shadow rapporteur to one of their members. In addition to the committees, there are a number of other groups of which MEPs can be a member. Interparliamentary delegations are the most common form of delegation. They maintain and promote relations with parliaments of countries from outside the European Union. Delegations to parliamentary assemblies include, for example, the ACP, the African, Caribbean and Pacific European Union Joint Parliamentary Assembly. Joint parliamentary committees are established with parliaments in states with an association agreement. And parliamentary cooperation committees are together with states with which the European Union has a cooperation agreement. There are also national delegations within the political groups. For example, the German Social Democrats, SPD, have a national delegation in which they discuss their positions and which is part of the Socialists and Democrats political group. And finally, intergroups can comprise members from any political group and any committee. They are established to hold informal exchanges of views on particular subjects and to promote contacts between MEPs and civil society. Those intergroups are not formal European Parliament bodies. The European Parliament's leadership is composed of different persons and groups. First, the President of the European Parliament has an important role in directing the EP's activities, as well as representing the Parliament towards other institutions. He or she is appointed for a term of 2.5 years. The President is assisted by 14 Vice Presidents who support him or her and to whom the President can delegate tasks. Administrative and financial matters concerning the MEPs are handled by 5 quaestors. Together, the President, the Vice Presidents and the quaestors form the Bureau, which is responsible for the internal functioning of the European Parliament. For example, they organize the plenary sessions and decide on organizational matters. Lastly, the Conference of Presidents plays an important role. This group consists of the chairs of the political groups. Together, they decide on the composition and competences of the various committees. In addition, they are responsible for the relations of the European Parliament with other EU institutions and third countries. To ensure that the European Parliament's work runs smoothly, it is divided in a number of different groups with different functions. The committees certainly are a very important part of this organizational structure, since this is where the legislative proposals and other initiatives are discussed and prepared for the plenary sessions, where then ultimately the votes are held. Making sure that more than 700 politicians can find agreement is not easy and requires good structure to manage the complexity. Certainly in a parliament with so many different national political groups and EP-level political groups, as in the European Parliament.